Okay, so as I sit here in my Montana Bear School this morning, I have been going through my packet of clues to dyslexia in early childhood that I have used with parents almost every time I've gotten a struggling reader in my classroom, or most especially when people have asked me to tutor their students over the summer. I start here, and I don't actually start at the clues. I go down here to where it says, in addition to the problems of speaking and reading, you should be looking for these indications of strengths in higher level thinking processes. So I start with the student strengths. So I'll do some reading assessments with them, and usually after like a little bit of time together looking at books and some letters, I can tell if they wanted, and I almost always start out with puzzles. So do they have are they curious? Do they like to learn? Are they interested in things? Do they have a great imagination? Do they have the ability to figure things out? Are they eager to embrace of new ideas? Getting the gist of things, a good understanding of new concepts, surprising maturity, a large vocabulary for their age group, enjoyment in solving puzzles, talent at building models, excellent comprehension of stories read or told to him or her. And usually I'll find 3, maybe 3 to 4. Students aren't going to have all of these, so just, be prepared. Then we'll go back and maybe look at some of the clues and struggles we're having. But I always start with the strengths. So then we go to 2nd grade. What are the strengths in 2nd grade? Okay, over here. Excellent thinking skills, conceptualization, reasoning, imagination, abstraction. Learning that is accomplished best through meaning rather than rote memorization. Ability to get the big picture. A higher level of understanding of what is read to him or her. The ability to read and to understand at a high level overlearned. That is highly practiced words in a special area of interest. The ability to read and understand at a high level overlearned words in a special area of interest. For example, if his hobby is restoring cars, he may be able to read auto mechanic magazines, or if they're into sports, they could read a magazine about basketball or science. Improvement in an area of interest becomes more specialized and focused when he develops a miniature vocabulary that he or she can read. A surprisingly sophisticated listening vocabulary. So we're really starting to see, I've seen a lot of parents have asked me about the decoding problem, but here we're talking a lot about vocabulary. Excellence in areas not dependent on reading, such as math, computers, visual arts, or excellence in more conceptual versus factoid-driven subjects, such as philosophy, biology, social studies, neuroscience, or creative writing. So, like I said before, they might not show all of these signs, but they might show 1 or 2 of these. And then it's the same with strengths, like, maybe 3 or you don't have to have this whole list of clues of things that aren't working. So, and then there's young adults and adults. And so you would have to go find page 126. So this is from the book Overcoming Dyslexia. I can't recommend that book enough. Now, then I skip to page 144, and I just read to the parents the underlined parts. I talk about phonological awareness is a more general and inclusive term. It includes all levels of awareness of the sound structure of words. It's also used to refer to the earliest stages of developing an awareness of the parts of words, such as sensitivity to rhyme, or noticing larger parts of words, such as syllables. Phonemic awareness is a much more specific term. As noted earlier, it refers to the more advanced ability to notice, identify, and manipulate the smallest particles that make up words' phonemes. Phonemic awareness has the strongest relationship to later reading, and most... Go on, puppy. Sorry. As noted earlier, it refers to the more advanced ability to note... Phonemic awareness has the strongest relationship to later reading, and most tests focus on this level of awareness. This most helpful tests include 3 kinds of measures: sound comprehension, segmentation, and blending. For sound comprehension, we'd ask a child to tell which word with the same first sound as rat, man, sat, or run. I can't tell you've never tried to teach a kid to read who either doesn't know beginning sounds or doesn't know ending sounds, that can't rhyme. How many kids I've tried to teach that can't rhyme? And so, but they learn. From second grade on, a child's development of these competencies is more a matter of refining and gaining efficiency or automaticity in the phonological skills previously acquired. Then we're talking about phonological memory, which evaluates a child's ability to temporarily store bits of verbal information. We see how well he can remember a series of numbers or words that were just presented to them orally. For example, 5, 7, 3, 1, 6. This type of memory plays an important role in reading at every level, even for a first grader who's trying to sound out a word. As a child reads a sentence, he has to hold several bits of information in their mind in order to put it together and make sense of what they've just read. Think of the process. They first decode the letters and the sounds, then holds the sounds in their memory. And then, as the child tries to decode the remaining letters in the word, he or she takes these stored sounds, blends them together, and forms the word. And so there's brain science that shows you can change a child's neurons by using a systematic, reading approach so that they develop that automaticity that makes their brain just do it. Then I go to page 147. In kindergarten, the child's ability to name the letters of the alphabet is a better predictor of future reading abilities. In first grade, it's the child's knowledge of letter sounds. And so I've talked a lot about being able to identify the letters in the alphabet doesn't just mean knowing the alphabet song or being able to say your ABCs. You need to be able to find the letters in your name. Or if you say, you have the alphabet written on a piece of paper, that your child can say, find letter N or find the T, or that they know them separately. Or if you show them a letter, they can say that letter. So the first step is designing an effective reading program is determine where your child is on the developmental continuum. So this is the one thing about grades and ages. I was just reading a thing about redshirting the other day. It just really matters. Where is your child at, and just moving them forward. So principle 2, remediate the phonological weakness and access the higher level thinking and reasoning strengths through accommodations. This is important because it places emphasis not only on the child's reading difficulty, but on their strengths. Whatever those strengths are, it's imperative that these strengths be identified, nurtured, and allowed to define the child. For many children, accommodations represents the difference between academic success and failure, between a growing sense of self-confidence and an enduring sense of defeat. So again, like I said, it's so I love about this book is focus on your child's strengths. But this chapter is also called All Children Can Be Taught to Read. There's now evidence, however, that children all along the spectrum can benefit from research-based reading programs. And I just got to put a little plug in for McGraw-Hill. I love reading mastery for preschoolers. Wonders was amazing for fourth graders. McGraw-Hill's really got it down. Upon discovering your child's dyslexia, her unique blends of strengths and weaknesses reflects her past, the genes she inherited, and her experiences growing up. But you can brighten your child's future by maximizing the two factors over which you have some control. So parents, this is you. The reading program your child receives, which will be addressed in the following chapters, and how your child is treated by the adults around her. Typically, her parents and her teachers are going to be the significant adult in your dyslexic child's life. They play an enormous role in determining their future outlook. The only way things will improve is if a knowledgeable and caring adult takes the lead and actively creates change. Most of the time, it is a patient, persevering, and positive activist parent. All children, so not just a child with dyslexia, I really believe all children need a champion, someone who will be their support and unflinching advocate. His cheerleader when things are not going well, his friend and confidant when others tease and shame him, his advocate who by actions and comments will express optimism for their future. Perhaps most important, the struggling reader needs someone who will not only believe in him, but will translate that belief into positive action by understanding the nature of their reading problem and then actively and relentlessly working to ensure that he receives the reading help and other support he or she needs. Experience has shown me that if a child receives help, they will succeed. And I believe this 100% too. So then they talk about getting help. Identification of the problem, of course, is the key. The sooner the diagnosis is made, the quicker your child can get help, and more likely you are to prevent secondary blows to their self-esteem. Your preschool child. If your preschool child struggles with language, particularly rhyming and pronouncing words, and especially if there's a family history of reading problems, don't keep your worries to yourself. Children with a history of dyslexia within their immediate family have a substantial risk of being dyslexic. The combination of a family history and symptoms of difficulty can gauge when to identify a vulnerable child. I taught kindergarten for a long time. And like we would have to wait till first quarter, but I felt like most teachers, they could tell who needed assistance. On the flip side, I feel like if every kid started with reading mastery, they would all learn. There's other great programs out there. Anita Archer is excellent. The Spartan woman looks like she's fantastic. So, you know, just research based. There's lots of great programs out there. I've had experience using McGraw-Hill and have really loved them. Your advocate wages a tireless campaign to bring the newest research knowledge about dyslexia to his small school in Brownsville, Texas. A child who has such a champion will not only succeed academically, but will maintain their sense of self and possibilities for a happy future. One of my purposes in writing this book is to give parents who want to be champions for their children the know-how that will allow them to make a real difference in their child's life. So, you know, I do say you need to work with your child's teacher, because I'm sure they're going to try, but parents, you've got to make sure your child is being. So this is page 174. Our knowledge of what works in teaching reading has come to us through science. The new information can be put to use to provide a sensible and successful approach to teaching children to read. Children who are at risk for reading problems and children who are already known to be dyslexic. Even children, like I said, without reading difficulties, it's basically all a very step-by-step approach. Some kids need more repetitions. Yeah. Do some kids need a little more here and there? But as a parent, how do you know where to begin and how to determine what's the best reading program for your son or daughter? The good news is that the data coming in from laboratories all over the world are providing a clear picture of the process of learning to read. Finally, a growing number of scientists, clinicians, and educators agree about what every child needs to know to become a good reader. And you would think then all the schools would be doing this, but there's still a little bit of discrepancy, and things are changing. I would definitely say trust your teacher, but they're doing their best. Then she's talking about a group who went on a mission to learn, to teach, to do the research. The most thorough report ever to be undertaken in American education. It provides a roadmap to guide parents and teachers to the most effective, scientifically proven methods for teaching reading. The Reading First grants. I can attest to the extremely high criteria that must be met in a state in order to receive an award. This landmark legislation signals the beginning of a revolution in how children are taught to read, ensuring that every child will be provided with a reading program that works. Now, you know, I've been in districts with Reading First grants, and that's why I feel highly qualified to teach reading, because I've had some of the best training ever. She's going to devote an entire chapter to breaking the reading code because that's the most critical and for many children the most difficult step. Then focus on how to ensure that a child becomes a skilled reader, that is a reader who reads accurately and rapidly and understands what he or she reads. So these, like I said, this is a packet that I have highlighted for parents and showed them many times. Then here's breaking the code. Step 1, developing an awareness of rhyme. The first step for a child is to develop a growing awareness of that words can rhyme. Turning into rhymes sensitizes very young children to the fact that words come apart. For example, if you know fig and jig rhyme, a child must attend to just a part of each word, the ending ig. The child begins to appreciate that words have parts. You can help sensitize a child's rhyme by reading stories and poems to them aloud. I also want to point out music. Music is rhyming. Music is rhyming. Listen to songs with your students. Sing with your students. If you have older students, get them a copy of the lyrics. Bring out your hymnal. Get everybody looking at the words while they're singing. Children often love to pump their fist up and down when they make the sounds of the train whistle. There's many books you can read to your child to help prepare them for reading. Knowing you are building a foundation for reading provides additive incentive for making read aloud a routine part of your special time together. And then they give you this awesome list of books. Mother Goose. You can't. That's why I brought down the Dr. Seuss books, because the Dr. Seuss books. Dr. Seuss was the master of making up words, because We want our kids to read nonsense words. We want them to be able to put the sounds together. Okay, then the next page I put for parents is 180. As he listens to them or even joins in singing their little ditties, he's taking a step toward becoming a reader. Suggest some activities that children can enjoy as they listen to the stories. Reading the story aloud several times simply for the pure joy of reading and sharing. Then draw the child's attentions to the sounds. As you read the story, simple comments such as, "Isn't it funny that so many words rhyme?" will help stimulate rhyme awareness. You can also ask your child to predict the next word in a rhyming story, or ask if they notice that all the words in a sentence begin with the same sound. Listen to beginning sounds in these words. Pink pigs picked pretty petals. What do you hear? Yeah, the P sound. What are some other words that begin with that sound? Actually, I wouldn't say the P sound. I would say the P sound. Because P is a short sound. P is the name, but the sound it makes it. So, because, all right, and then it talks about sight words. Begin with the first 10 or so words. They make up a staggering 20%, 25% of all the words appearing each week. So, just reviewing these words. With, his. Begin with the first 10 or so words. Is it 10 going down or 10 going across? Probably 10 going down. With, his, they, at, be, this, from, I, have, or, by, one, had. And at school, we would do a lot of say, spell, say. So we would say with. Say it, spell it. W-I-T-H. And then say it with. Because a lot of these words are going to be sight words, which means that you can't really sound them out. Some aren't going to be. These don't look as many as sight words, but sight words is usually the, said, words that you can't sound out. But so this is a great list of common words. Practice is key to becoming a skilled reader. Without it, a child may see a word and then have it float out in their mind forever. With it, he strengthens the neural connections for the word so that it is ready reserve until it's needed again. Children need to be exposed to books that are easy and fun to read. With these books, the child is in familiar territory since most of the words they contain are already registered in the reading circuits of their brain. These books help consolidate reading skills already learned. Repeated practice with them is key to reinforcing and strengthening the neural wiring for specific words and word families. Children also benefit from reading somewhat more difficult books as well. With a teacher or parent available to provide guidance and to answer questions, reading such books allows the child to expand the knowledge of letter sound linkages and of the exceptions to the rules, and to learn new vocabulary words and concepts. In practice, the child starts with the simplest books, and as they learn more letters and sounds and more sight words, he gradually works his way up to longer, more interesting books. But at the very beginning, for the sheer pleasure of being able to read on their own, and for the confidence it builds, nothing works as well as the small decodable booklet discussed in the previous chapter. Once you read one with your child, chances are that they will want to reread it on their own over and over. Children like to read these simple books because they can. The Bob books published by Scholastic. Your school probably sends home decodable books with your child. I would be surprised if they didn't. So ask your school's teachers about those. But I can't stress enough repeated reading and easy reading. Like if you have a 4th grader or 5th grader that's struggling to read, children's books are not. Let them read ones that come easy. Let them read a Big Brother or Sister. Let them read to a stuffed animal. Let them read to the dog. Easy books. And then, if they're interested in trees or plants or growing, or if they're interested in frogs or snakes or camping or butterflies or deer, gnat, deer. What does your child like to read? Sports. And then let them read them over and over. You can usually get books for free at the library. There's the Screen Actors Guild reads stories online, and then the kids like to read those when they check them out. But just don't remember, just because they're a 4th grader, a lot of these children's books that have pictures, 4th graders are just going to be able to read. These aren't for kindergartners to read. Look at all that text in there. So just because it's a children's book. 4th, 5th, 6th graders can even read these books. We want them to enjoy reading, comfortable. The more comfortable they are with smaller words, it's putting those sounds together. The easier, bigger words will come to them. Read aloud books that are fun with rhymes and alliterations as they listen to them and enjoy, even join in singing the little ditties. They take a step towards becoming a reader. Suggest some activities that children can enjoy as they listen to the stories. Read the story aloud several times simply for the pure joy of reading and sharing. Then draw your child's attention to we already read this part. And then we went through what's over here. We talked about this. Making it a habit to read the book to your child first, then sit as they read it back to you. Page 222. Read the book and be there to offer assistance if they come across an unexpectedly difficult word. When you read to her, you can support your child by reminding her that part of the fun of reading is figuring out the word and that it often takes more than one try. Encouraging her to first sound out the word and listen to how the word sounds and ask herself, does that sound right? Does it fit in? Encouraging her to trust her instincts, and if a word doesn't seem right, to apply the strategy she knows and to check her word bank to see if it is a tricky word that must be memorized. If so, she can check its pronunciation with you. Sharing with her your own missteps in reading. To read a book with ease, a child should be able to read about 19 out of 20 words on a page correctly. If not, the book is probably too difficult. 19 out of 20 words. I don't know how many books I've read with students where they couldn't read 4 or 5 words out of a sentence. So, find easy, comfortable books for your children to practice with reading, and then let them work on the more difficult stuff when they're in the classroom or when you're working. But they need to develop fun, easy learning. The essentials of an effective early intervention program are, and this is so true, systematic and direct instruction. Systematic means it goes in order. There's an order. We know which letters they want to learn first, which words. Phonemic awareness, noticing, identifying, manipulating the sounds of spoken language. Phonics, how letters and letter groups represent the sounds of spoken language. Sounding out words, decoding, spelling, reading sight words, vocabulary and concepts, reading comprehension strategies. Practice and applying skills in reading, writing. Fluency training, enriched language experiences, listening to, talking about, and telling stories. I can't stress enough the importance of reading to your child. And then another reason I like puppets is because they're reading a script, so they're doing repeated as they practice. They love it. They're fluency gains. There's a vocabulary in puppets. Powerful and proven reading programs incorporating these features are now bringing cutting-edge science directly into the classroom, and I've seen them many times. It's true. They're there. But the teachers, there's so much there. It's knowing which parts to make sure your students are getting. I would want to stay with a proven cohesive program that leaves nothing to chance. If your child is at risk or struggling to learn to read, you must ask their teacher about the program they're using. If it is a recommended one, you're reassured your child's in good hands and he will learn to read. If not, discuss the program with your teacher and suggest she consider using one for your child or a comparable one that reflects the same principles. All teachers want their students to learn to read, but many simply do not have a good source, reliable information about effective research-based reading programs. Your role, indeed your responsibility as your child's chief advocate and parent, is to bring new and important information to your child's teacher in school. Reading first legislation now have a mandate to provide evidence-based programs to students. A systematic, explicit instruction in phonemic awareness and phonics, and then teaching children how to apply this knowledge in reading and writing. Oh, and see here, she's recommending reading mastery right there. Just like, I saw it. I couldn't believe the difference in kids that were put in reading mastery, the changes it made. And I've heard that from so many other teachers. Then they talk about moving from accuracy to fluency. The ordinary reader becomes her own best reading teacher. She automatically compares each word she reads with its stored neural model. If it's a perfect match, she rapidly identifies the word. If her model is not quite an exact replica, she corrects it, and after a few readings, she has a perfect fit. That word becomes part of her internal dictionary of words read at a glance. Then it goes on to training the brain. Approaches that emphasize repeated oral reading with teacher feedback and guidance provide the strongest outcomes. So you got to have that teacher feedback and guidance, or parents, but teachers go to school for a long time, and it's taken me many, many years to learn this. In general, those depending on the principles of overlearning, which is just another way of saying that something so ingrained and so automatic that it requires no active attention or conscious thought, like driving a car or riding a bike. Learning to read music, learning how to play soccer, learning how to train for a marathon. You must now practice your reading out loud does come easily, in spite of the fact that in all likelihood it will have greater impact on their future than either sports or music. Fluency training is to be approached like any athletic endeavor. Each fluency training session should require only minutes a day. Practice must be consistent and extend over a period of weeks or preferably months. Since fluency is built on accuracy and students must practice on materials they can already decode, in practical terms, this means that they must be able to read the passage, if chosen with a high degree of accuracy, making no more than one error for every 20 words read. Practice means reading the same passage at least 4 times. Of course, this need not be during the same practice session. So reading something 4 times at least. Successful fluency training can be achieved through repeated oral reading of an entire passage or single word. So, like I said, I like to do a lot of puppet plays because the kids will say, "Can we do it again? Can we do it again?" They know their parents are going to come watch. They want to practice. But I want to also recommend another great resource, Anita Archer. She has a phonics book that was excellent. Blow the Lid Off Reading we used last year was excellent. So there's lots of great programs out there. But repeated reading and things that get easier. The goal is to bring naming times below 1 second per word that the child names at least 60 words per minute. These can be single words on flashcards. They can be rows of 5 or 6 words put across a large card. There's many ways to practice reading. As always, ask your child's teacher what word or letter combinations your child's working on. She will be able to provide with the most appropriate words for practice. The goal of speed of word repetition is to bind a word's critical feature together so tightly that they become and function as a single unit. It's not surprising to learn that slow or poor readers appear to gain even more from repeated reading practice than do their more able reading peers. So the reading mastery coach that used to come to our building used to talk all the time. Some kids are only going to need to learn things once or twice. Most kids up to 70 times. And then struggling readers need to have 700 repetitions. So don't feel bad if your student needs to hear things over and over, but I promise you they will get it. Like I said, I can't recommend reading mastery enough for kindergartners, first graders. Words should be practiced until they can be read fluently. As soon as this occurs, the child can begin reading a wider range of books and stories, providing him with the kinds of practice he requires in order to enlarge his reading vocabulary and build an increasing number of accurate word representations. The key is to find enjoyable ways to encourage reading aloud. Having a child practice reading poetry is an excellent method for improving their fluency. Poems are usually short, they have a rhyme, and they're tailor-made for reading quickly with expression. So, like I said, lyrics. If you have kids, lyrics are great poems. Bob Dylan, you can't beat it. Oh, and here she agrees with me. Students also enjoy reading and rereading or singing songs or limericks. Lyrics to a song can be handed out to a class or a small group for the song to be sung or read several days in a row. Song lyrics are particularly suitable for choral reading, where the teacher first reads the words and then she and the students join together to read aloud as a group, rereading the lyrics 4 or even more times. I guess I just haven't read this whole thing all the way through in a while. Paired reading only requires 15 minutes in the evening. Parents read a brief story or passage to their child, followed by a parent and child reading the same passage together a few times. Then the child alone reads the text back to the parent. Comparisons show that children who read aloud with their parents made substantially larger gains in fluency. I urge parents of dyslexic children to make fluency training repeated oral reading their number one priority, because it involves reinforcement rather than teaching a child a new concept. It is ideally suited for the home. Fluency training is something all parents can do for their child. It requires little time, minimal expertise, and it invariably works. Fiction, poetry, plays, and even single words or use commercial programs. In doing so, you're training your child's brain and helping build the accurate word models and reward form reading system necessary for quick and accurate reading. There are very few activities for a dyslexic reader that provide as much improvement for the amount of time spent as does guided repeated oral reading. Repeatedly reading a word correctly leads to the development of... we're almost done. Accurate neural representations. Once a child has mastered one feature of the printed word, it becomes easier for him to join that feature with the others, the way the word sounds and the way it's spelled, and to add the word to his sight vocabulary for reading. So we're up to page 274 in this book. Like I said, I've used this over and over. Some things work better with other kids. Building a larger vocabulary also contributes to reading words fluently. They talk about correct words read per minute, little chart. The stakes for literacy are higher than ever. Learning to read opens the door to a better, brighter future. Given the effective programs teach reading at all levels of reading abilities in all ages, it's truly never too late to learn to read. And then I just want to show one more book. This one. You read to me, I'll read to you. And she's got a whole series of these. This is the fairy tale one. But parents, it shows you how to go partner reading. Here's another book, book 2. You read to me, I'll read to you. We'll read each page to one another. You'll read one side, I the other. But who will read? Now guess this riddle. When the words are in the middle, the answer's easy, plain as pie. We'll read together, you and I. So this book is totally made for it already. It's got on the left for your student, I think, and for your parent, or parent-student. You can switch back and forth. The stuff in the middle, you read together. So just some fun stuff. You know, I would read this book with 4th graders, 5th graders that are struggling readers. Definitely, you know, I don't think kindergartners are going to read it. Or even 1st graders, I'm not sure. But older students, this is a great place to start, parents. There's a whole bunch of these. And then if you don't have that one, just... like I said, find a book that's for your child's age. A single ball is one ball. If you were the first in line, you are before all others. Then read it together. And then have your child read it to you. So anyway, parents, that's what I have to say about the book, Overcoming Dyslexia. Those are the highlights that I think... if your teacher hasn't read those, or there's parts in there that resonated with you, I would definitely buy the book. I bought it for many parents, teachers, other reading specialists, or, you know, give it to your teacher, get one for yourself. Check it out in the library. I can't recommend Overcoming Dyslexia enough.